Can I get an international team to call up a squad of entirely players from one club's side on Football Manager without cheating? Let's find out the limits of FM22's international management AI. This feels like it should be possible, right? Just sign all of one nation's best players and you're good to go, surely. Well, maybe not. Firstly, there's the obvious problem that signing all the top players of a nation to fill a 23-man squad is, for a lot of countries, going to be really expensive. And even if every player is affordable and wants a transfer, there's also the practical considerations of work permits and squad registrations to consider. Even the richest clubs, the Man Cities and PSGs of this world, operate with colossal budgets but with rules that will outright prevent certain players from being signable, and even if they are, from being registered to play, which leads to the second major problem. The likelihood of being able to sign an entire nation of players in one window is small, so in order to be called up, players will surely need to play regularly and play well. And the only way they can do that is if they are at a team matching their ability. In other words, only the richest teams in the richest national leagues can realistically ever sign every international and near international standard player of a certain nationality, and they can only really register players of a nationality of that club's nation. And the richest leagues' national teams tend, to have the most expensive players. In practical terms, we could manage, say, Malmo and sign Swedish players, but Malmo cannot afford to sign the majority of the Swedish national team. Or we could manage Manchester City and sign Swedish players, but we couldn't register them all to play, so they wouldn't all end up being selected. Or we could manage Manchester City and sign English players, but even with their billions, signing and playing all of the necessary players would be extremely difficult, and that's not even counting club rivalries preventing certain moves anyway. So the only way I can see to do this involves managing a rich, reputable club which is able to register all players of a certain nation and which ideally has a pool of players capable of performing to a reasonable standard in the club's domestic league to ensure money, reputation and me being sacked aren't affected, which could be an issue and could take time. Or maybe, just maybe, if we pick a nation with players few and cheap enough, maybe we can buy all of them. So even if they don't play, the AI's hand will be forced. I think that might work, and I think I know the place to try it with. San Marino are pretty much the worst team in the world. A standard save will see most of their squad filled with greyed out players. For this, I'm going to forcibly load them into the database. Bayern Munich seems a solid place to try this with. They're rich and the Bundesliga rules allow 99 players to be registered as long as a minimum number of German players are included. San Marino are not an EU member, but they have freedom of movement with it. This should be doable looking at these prices, but as some of the main guys have just moved clubs or are on loan, we'll holiday forward a season to hopefully maximise availability. Okay, that should sort it. I'm not sure what the Bayern board will make of this, but at least it won't be too much of a financial hit. Is this the stupidest thing I've ever done? I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever done. For an outlay of less than 2 million, we signed the entire current national team save for one goalkeeper who is apparently retiring, or who has already retired but is still here or something, who knows. The real test though is when the AI calls up the squad for the September internationals, so I'll see you then. I think I'll buy a few more players just to make it safe. And when the announcement comes through, the AI has no choice but to call up an entire squad of unused Bayern Munich players. Okay, so mission accomplished. The answer is indeed yes. But what about with players you've actually heard of? Actual professional players who can actually compete in a top league and where there is actual competition for places in the national team? Well, I think there is a team where it might be possible in a reasonable time period, and that is Wales. Ranked 21st in the world, Wales have been pretty decent recently. They have a key advantage of basically all their players being homegrown in England as their main clubs play there, so basically we can use an English team for this. And what other English team would we go for? Having again holidayed a year in, with over 200 million to spend, not to mention a world-class squad of players now for sale, I reckon we could potentially secure the entire Welsh squad ahead of the next set of internationals. No World Cup in this universe though, and well, yeah, I don't know what Sky Sports would be saying about this. Fabrizio Romano would be tweeting till he went insane, but we are able to basically sign every prominent Welsh player really quickly and easily. I was expecting competition for Gareth Bale, but nope. We did have some for Brennan Johnson, but he picked us. Ben Davis was pretty pricey, but the only player who we can't get at the moment is Chris Mepham because he for some reason joined Nashville Classic FM. Should be fine in a month or so, but otherwise we now have the entire Welsh squad. But for the real test, let's see if the AI will still call them up for the September internationals. And yeah, looks good. And yep, okay, we don't need Mepham anyway. Rob Page just called up an entire squad of players we bought already. Mission accomplished again. I guess most national teams don't really have enough players to be picky. I think attempting this with any of the top national teams will be a very long process on the club side of things. Like England. What about England? Well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but most English players are really, really expensive. And most English players play for one of 6 or so really rich teams who really don't want to sell them and who actively hate at least one of the other 6 teams, so will never sell a player to them anyway. So I'm not sure how possible this would be. There is, however, a newly minted team in the Premier League. Newcastle are really, really, really rich now, and none of the other major clubs have any substantial rivalry with them, which would prohibit player sales. Sunderland are obviously their rival, but let's be serious, I can't see any Sunderland players being called up for England anytime soon. Newcastle start with a very low bar in terms of England internationals though. Only Kieran Trippier and Callum Wilson have been capped, and only really maybe Joe Willock or Matt Targett could realistically ever join them. And their reputation isn't exactly Champions League standards, so this might be slow going. In my first season, I signed Jared Bowen and James Tarkowski to bolster the ranks, and we end up with an incredible campaign. We end the season with an excellent run of form, including a win over Manchester City. We finished 4th with 72 points, and with Callum Wilson as the Golden Boot winner with 34 goals. Not that this has any impact on the England squad, as we go the entire year with literally 0 call-ups. Wilson does eventually get called up after Harry Kane gets injured, but that's it. Over the summer I signed for Kayo Tomori, Nick Pope, Declan Rice, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Ben White amongst others, and this sees us at an amazing 5 call-ups. But over the course of a fairly sluggish season, this drops to 4, then 3, and then 2 as we stumble to 5th place. Another summer spending spree sees us sign Aaron Ramsdale, Calvin Phillips, James Maddison, Ebery Eze and Luke Shaw. These moves see us manage to scrape back up to 5 call-ups again, although that is short-lived. Kieran Trippier literally has the highest rating in the division, but that counts for absolutely nothing. Is it valuation, hidden current ability stat, club bias? Who knows? In the end, we wind up with a fantastic 2nd place, 8 points behind Man City, an absolutely insane season from Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 39 goals, the top 3 highest rated players, and most assists from Maddison. And the result of this wonderful season? Carlo Ancelotti, now England boss, names his preliminary Euro 2024 squad, and we get a record, yet still disappointing, 6 names in it. Calvert-Lewin, Tomori, Ramsdale, Shaw, Rice, and Maddison. White is inexplicably dropped. There's no space for Bowen, Phillips or Trippier, and then he goes and drops Maddison and Rice from the final squad anyway. Disheartened, I sign Harvey Barnes and Emil Smith-Rowe for ridiculous sums of money, with nobody else good really interested except helpfully Ben Chilwell and Bukayo Saka after the deadline is passed. We go back up to 5 call-ups, and then Calvert-Lewin does his cruciate ligament in a defeat to AC Milan, and I sit in silence for a moment contemplating the fruitlessness of this, the total waste of hours of my life so far, and the prospect of many, many more still to come, and I concede defeat. £800 million spent in 4 years for 5 confirmed England call-ups. Wow. I did attempt this with Chelsea on FM21, and if memory serves, managed to get about 11 call-ups. I think it is certainly possible with Newcastle, but it would just take a really, really, really long time. I think it's potentially possible with Chelsea or Man City, but the rivalries are really just too strong in some aspects. Whether it's the hatred between City and United, or the competitiveness between City and Liverpool to stop it from working. Like, would Liverpool ever sell any of the other clubs Trent Alexander-Arnold? It might be worth another try another day, but I think that's enough for now. Thanks for watching this thing, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.